Stop scrolling. I'm about to ruin chainsaws for you forever. That buzzing nightmare you see in horror movies, that manly logging tool your dad had in the garage, it was invented to cut through a woman's pelvis during childbirth. Not trees, not monsters, childbirth. I'm dead serious. In the 1780s, two Scottish doctors named John Aitken and James Jeffray looked at complicated labor and thought, you know what would help? A hand-cranked chain with teeth on it. They called it an osteotome, and they used it to saw through pelvic bone when babies couldn't fit through the birth canal. Yeah, let that image marinate for a second while you reconsider every lumberjack commercial you've ever seen. Now here's where it gets insane. This torture device, because let's be honest, that's what it was, this thing didn't stay in hospitals. Humanity looked at a bone saw and said, but what if we made it bigger? Within 150 years, we went from saving mothers to leveling entire forests to creating one of cinema's most iconic horror villains. The chainsaw's journey is basically humanity's resume in tool form. Started with good intentions, ended with destruction and movie massacres. So how does a medical instrument designed to save lives become the universal symbol of taking them? How did the same technology go from delivery rooms to destroying ecosystems to haunting your nightmares? And why the hell did we think mechanizing a handsaw was a good idea in the first place? Stick with me for the next 9 minutes, because this story has more twists than a chainsaw blade has teeth. And trust me, you'll never hear that buzz the same way again. All right, let's rewind to 1780s Scotland. Meet John Aitken and James Jeffray, two surgeons facing a brutal reality. When childbirth complications happened, doctors had to manually cut through pelvic cartilage in a procedure called symphysiotomy to widen the birth canal and save the baby. And they did it with knives and handsaws, slowly, painfully, dangerously. The longer it took, the higher the risk of infection, blood loss, or death for the mother. So Aitken designed something radical, a flexible chain with serrated cutting edges on each link, stretched between two handles. One doctor would hold each side and move the chain back and forth in a sawing motion, like a medieval two-person lumber saw, but for bone. It was horrifying, but it was faster and more controlled than a blade. Jeffray refined it further and used it to remove diseased joints and limbs. This wasn't just a chainsaw prototype, it was the birth of mechanized surgery. And for the first time, humans realized if you can move a cutting edge in a continuous loop, you can cut through almost anything. Fast forward over a century. The Industrial Revolution is in full swing. Trains, factories, steel, steam. Engineers start looking at old surgical mechanics and thinking, what if we scaled this up? In 1905, a San Francisco logger named Samuel J. Benz filed a patent for the first endless chainsaw designed for timber cutting. It was motorized, clunky, and revolutionary. For the first time, you didn't need a two-man handsaw and hours of exhausting labor to fell a tree. But the game really changed in 1926 when a German mechanical engineer named Andreas Stihl patented the first electric chainsaw built for mass production. It weighed 116 pounds, needed 2 men to operate it, and sounded like an angry mechanical demon. But loggers loved it. By 1929, Stihl had developed the first gasoline-powered chainsaw, and suddenly, forestry would never be the same. Trees that took hours to cut, now it was minutes. Then came World War II, and everything exploded. After the war, nations everywhere needed timber to rebuild bombed cities, construct highways, and build millions of suburban homes for returning soldiers. The chainsaw became the tool of post-war prosperity. Governments subsidized logging operations, lumber companies expanded, and chainsaw manufacturers couldn't keep up with demand. By the early 1950s, companies like Stihl, Husqvarna, and McCulloch had cracked the code. Lightweight, portable, one-man chainsaws powered by gasoline engines. These weren't clunky industrial beasts anymore. They were tools any logger could afford and carry into the forest solo. In places like Newfoundland, loggers went from cutting 2 cords of wood per day with handsaws to 4 cords of wood with chainsaws. Productivity doubled overnight. This was the chainsaw's golden age. The marketing? Legendary. Ads sold chainsaws as symbols of masculinity, progress, and freedom. Cut your work in half. Tame the wilderness. These weren't just tools, they were identity. Owning a chainsaw meant you were modern, efficient, powerful. For $200 to $250, you could transform yourself from a laborer to a one-man logging machine. And contractors often fronted the cost, deducting it from wages over time. It was the American dream in mechanical form. Chainsaws didn't just cut trees, they carved civilization itself. Roads through the Amazon, highways across Alaska, emergency rescues after natural disasters, storm cleanup, ice sculpting competitions. The chainsaw became humanity's universal cut-through-anything solution. It was raw mechanical muscle made portable, and for a brief, shining moment, it represented pure human ingenuity, the triumph of engineering over nature's toughest materials. This was the peak, the moment when the chainsaw was universally admired, desired, and respected. It symbolized progress without question, power without consequence. But here's the thing about peaks, there's always a fall coming. Quick note before we get into what went wrong. If you're vibing with this deep dive into the weird history behind everyday objects, hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about uncovering the surprising, wild, and often disturbing origins of things we take for granted. Your support keeps these stories buzzing. Now, let's talk about how everything started to crack. The 1970s hit like a sledgehammer. Oil prices skyrocketed during the energy crisis, making gas-powered chainsaws expensive to run. Environmental movements gained momentum, and suddenly those roaring saws that symbolized progress, they became symbols of destruction, clear-cutting forests, destroying habitats, contributing to deforestation. The public started asking uncomfortable questions. What are we really cutting down, and at what cost? Then came the safety reckoning. Chainsaws were dangerous, thousands of injuries every year from kickback, chain breaks, and operator error. Lawsuits piled up against manufacturers. Companies scrambled to add chain brakes, better guards, and anti-vibration handles. But the damage to the chainsaw's reputation was done. It wasn't just powerful anymore, it was deadly. And then in 1974, everything changed forever. Director Tobe Hooper released the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, a low-budget indie horror film that turned the chainsaw into a weapon of pure terror. Leatherface, the chainsaw-wielding killer, became an instant cultural icon. The film was brutal, psychological, and disturbingly realistic. It reflected America's post-Vietnam, post-Watergate anxieties, the sense that something had rotted at the core of society. Overnight, the chainsaw went from a tool of progress to a symbol of violence and chaos. No amount of corporate PR could undo what Leatherface did to the chainsaw's image. It was now forever linked to horror, madness, and brutality. The tool that once represented building civilization now represented tearing it apart. By the early 2000s, the world had moved on. Environmental regulations tightened globally, forests became protected, sustainable forestry practices replaced clear-cutting. And then, quietly, the electric chainsaw made its comeback. Cleaner, quieter, and more efficient than ever. The gas-powered roar that once symbolized power, now it just sounded outdated. Today's chainsaws are almost unrecognizable from their ancestors. Lightweight lithium batteries, precision controls, safety features everywhere. They're used by arborists, landscapers, and homeowners, not conquering nature, but carefully managing it. The chainsaw didn't disappear, it evolved. Again. And here's the beautiful irony. We've come full circle. The chainsaw started as a medical tool designed with precision and care. It became a symbol of industrial domination and horror, and now it's back to being a tool of careful, controlled use, sustainable, quieter, safer. The story of the chainsaw is the story of humanity. We create, we destroy, we learn, and we adapt. The lesson isn't that chainsaws are good or evil, it's that tools reflect the intentions of those who wield them. The same device that saved lives in childbirth also leveled forests and terrified moviegoers. Every innovation carries the potential for both creation and destruction. And maybe that's the most human thing about the chainsaw. It's a mirror. Thanks for sticking around until the end. If this story sliced through your expectations, smash that like button, drop a comment telling me what everyday object you want me to dissect next, and subscribe for more history that'll change how you see the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and remember, every simple thing has a story that's anything but simple.